And the Browns go in and score again.
4 touchdown passes on the day, and we're not even at halftime.
Throws right side, it's picked off. They got it down the sideline. It's Denzel Ward. He's to the 35, 40. He's to the 50. He's to the 40, 30, 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown! A pick six. Denzel Ward is back. On the right side to Chubb. Chubb over the 50. Chubb to the 45. Chubb to the 40. Down the sideline, 30, 25, 20, 15, 10, 5. There he goes. Touchdown, Nick Chubb.
Oh, if only Sunday was anywhere near as positive as our opening credits are, then we'd be feeling a hell of a lot better here on this Tuesday evening. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Believeland Brits podcast. Thank you for tuning in on a Tuesday instead of a Monday. I've hightailed it down on a train from Edinburgh to be back with you all. Unfortunately, Owain can't be here tonight. He's starting his rehabilitation on his with his foot down at his football club, so hopefully things are going well for him. But I do have, as always, Shaun Blundell. Shaun, how are you doing, buddy? Let's try and keep it positive to start at least.
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. We kind of are where we probably thought we would be. I think, knowing where you're going to be and actually experiencing the journey to get there, they were two very different things, and it doesn't mean that you don't get annoyed and frustrated. And yeah, it's probably a good job this wasn't yesterday, because we probably slightly calmed down a little bit. Because it was pretty awful to watch. Let's be honest. You had the pleasure of only watching it in 40 minutes. I had to sit through it for the full 3 hours of real time with a Dolphins fan in my house. So yeah, it wasn't a great Sunday night for me.
Yeah, my Dolphins friends haven't actually got onto me yet. I'm quite surprised, considering as to just how much of a beatdown it was. But I'm sure that they will be ringing round the fences at some point. Let's jump straight into it. So we've titled this one Catharsis Corner tonight. I think that tonight, more than any other, we just need to be able to vent our frustrations, get it all out there. Like you said, Shaun, it's probably where we thought that actually, in hindsight, we were always going to be. We just didn't want to believe it. Owain was probably the only person that was banging on that particular drum, but you don't want to believe it, and now it's happened. You look for reasons as to why it shouldn't be. But we are where we are. We're 3-6 going into a game with the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. And realistically, even before we look at the Buffalo Bills, let's look back at this performance. So just on the stats alone, the Dolphins outgained the Browns 491 to 297 overall. With 296 passing yards to 185, rushing yards 195 to 112. Literally every passage of play here. Yards per play 7.3 to 4.8. Time of possession 33 minutes to 26 and a bit minutes. The only thing that seemed to actually have been slowed down was the penalties. The penalties were about even, 43 yards to 52 yards, skewing our way, unfortunately. Third down efficiency 6 for 11 for the Dolphins, 5 from 12 attempts for the Browns. Realistically, those last few stats don't really tell the story. The Browns had one good drive at the start, of which set things off in motion, and the team simply gave up after that. Either that or there were no ideas. From what I could tell, obviously I've only seen it for 40 minutes, but it looked like we wanted to run the ball. It was not given to us. It wasn't presented to us as an option. And, from that point, outside of the schemed plays, we couldn't draw up any passes. And then on defense, I think that you could have put a proper locomotive train through our defensive line and linebackers on Sunday. And I think that the Dolphins were just very happy to take everything that they got. You obviously went through it for 3 hours and were tormented by your Dolphins, mate. What did you make overall as to the glaring issues that were there?
No, I think the glaring issues were run defense was the biggest issue. I mean, if you'd have said going into this game that you'd have limited Waddle and Hill in the way that we did, you would have felt pretty good about things. They didn't dominate the game in terms of, we obviously do the full 10 yards podcast, and it seems as though we talk almost on a weekly basis about both of these guys putting up over 100 yards. I think, combined, they only just about scraped over that number.
Yeah, it was 125, I think it was, that they got combined.
Yeah, so, if you'd have offered anybody that pre-game, you'd have absolutely snapped your hands off for it. But the run game just killed us. And, I said last week that I think Jeff Wilson's a very astute addition to this Dolphins team. I said that in the preview last week, and he looked very, very comfortable in the offense. But as you just said, mate, the glaring thing really is, I could have run through some of the holes that were being created. It was just absolutely horrendous. The defensive tackle position, I've got to be honest, it's at the stage now where it's almost malpractice now on the part of this front office for it to be this bad, because it is just absolutely awful. There's not one player in that position group that you look at and think, I want them back on this team next year. Now, not one of them has done anything remotely resembling NFL quality caliber, even just bang average defensive tackle play. It's just really poor. Tommy Tagovailoa just gets pushed around. I mean, there's certain clips doing the rounds on Twitter where he starts off and he's over left guard and he ends up over right tackle. He's been moved, 3 or 4 positions across the line. We've got defensive tackles, running up the field and they're 3 or 4 yards past.
Yeah, that was Taven Bryan, wasn't it? I think that one of which you're on about there, where Tua is literally 3 yards to his left and probably about a yard further up than him. He just seems to completely lose the play.
Absolutely, and there were just so many examples of it. And the byproduct of that is the linebackers then look really bad. Now, I'm not saying that the linebackers are particularly brilliant, far from it, but they're essentially being pressed by 300-pound offensive linemen because the defensive line is just non-existent. And Deion Jones looks extremely rusty. There's a few examples where he had really poor eye discipline. I don't really know what's going on with the position because the guy whose surname I can't pronounce, Jordan Kunashik, I'm going to go with that. He seemed to be in on several plays on the weekend, and he was probably 5th or 6th on the depth chart at the start of the season, and he's getting reps now. I don't know if that's due to injuries or what, but we'd had 2 or 3 weeks of the defense starting to look as though it was turning the corner, and then they lay this absolute rotten egg of a performance. Not helped by the offense. We'll talk about the offense in due course, but I thought the defense was just absolutely abysmal, and I am sick and tired. We're now in week 10, week 11, and to hear guys like John Johnson, who has done nothing for the Browns apart from steal a paycheck, come out and start saying we need to, start putting the effort in. We're reaching the point now of no return. I'm sorry, the point of no return was several weeks ago. You are now, what is it, a 4% chance they think now of making the playoffs? A 4% chance. I don't know even where they calculate that from, but I think we've got absolutely no chance whatsoever. And this is a really horrible season now because what have you actually got to play for now? I'm never a fan of tanking. Don't get me wrong. I don't like tanking. I always like to try and win every game.
But it's not like we can.
We get no benefit from it, do we? We get no benefit at all because, we're not going to get the benefit in terms of the pick, unless you're somebody that truly believes pick, 32 or 33 or 34 in the draft is going to be so much more valuable than what pick 40 something odd might be. But you're certainly not going to be getting that first round pick. It's just a really, really poor and sorry state of affairs. And like I say, I think there's probably a little bit of realisation, certainly from me, and I think we've all, we've been optimistic, as you say. But I think for me, I think there's plenty of players on this defensive side of the ball in particular that are nowhere near as talented as what we thought and what we hoped they would be. I wouldn't be disappointed if both safeties, weren't starting next year. I think John Johnson's almost a certain cut at this point. I think they save something like 10 million on the cap if they cut him. And like I say, for what we're getting on the field, I will be gobsmacked if John Johnson is back with the Browns. Grant Delpit has been horrendous. Really don't know what happened this week either. Some really bizarre situation where he didn't start the game. He was off the field for the first play of the game. I mean, if that's a disciplinary issue, what kind of a message is that sending? Okay, you're not starting. You missed the first play of the game, and then you run back out on the field. I'm baffled as to what kind of punishment that actually was. A really, really bizarre one that's come out over the course of the sort of press conferences and questions that have led out after the game. He missed 3 plays in the entire game, including the first one. Which again, just
real slap on the wrist if it is a disciplinary thing.
Yeah, really, really strange. But like I say, the 2 safeties for me aren't good. Greg Newsome, I thought, had a really good rookie season. I think they've obviously tried to play him inside this year, and he just hasn't made the same impact. Now, whether that's because they've been happy with what they've got out of Martin Emerson and they've wanted to give him more reps, I don't know. But for me, I would have been sticking with Newsome on the outside because I thought he really played well as a rookie. I think he's probably dipped off this year. Denzel Ward, we know he's good, but he's had his injury concerns. Linebackers, it's a real shame, isn't it? The first 3 or 4 weeks of the year, Taki has come in and has done okay, but we haven't replaced Walker since he went down. Deion Jones hasn't really worked out as we would have wanted.
Yeah, JOK's been off the field.
And injuries. And we know the defensive line, we know what you're going to get from Garrett. We know what you're going to get from Clowney. But ultimately, there is nothing else. There is absolutely
and it negates the ends.
Line.
It completely negates the ends because all you have to do is push the guys out wide. All of a sudden, you've got a really nice pocket, including in front of you. So if you're going in the pass play, you just go out wide and then you can step into the pocket and do whatever the hell you like. Garrett and Clowney have no chance to get round. Or if you're doing a run play, you just push everyone forward.
And look,
it's ridiculous.
We could go on and on and on about this defense. I think ultimately, as I've said, I don't think it's as talented as we hoped and thought it might have been. I think there's a lot of changes that need to come there. I wouldn't be surprised if, in terms of the draft capital that we've got and the free agency spend that we make, I wouldn't be surprised if 70 to 80% of that goes to the defensive side of the ball. I don't think there'll be massive additions offensively, but I certainly think defensively there needs to be some real changes. And just to finish off on the defense, and probably transition us naturally across to the offense, look at the Miami defensive line. That was everything that the Browns line wants, that the Browns want their line to be. That was pressure on the edges from Ingram, from Phillips, from Bradley Chubb. And I thought the best player on the defensive side of the ball for the Dolphins was Christian Wilkins, the defensive tackle. Ugly job, but he was in the backfield seemingly every single play. The offensive line had its worst outing of the year.
By far.
But like I say, Christian Wilkins, you just think that's exactly the kind of player that the Browns need. Somebody that's going to be disruptive on the inside. He's going to win his one-on-one matchups. He's not going to get pushed around. And when the edges didn't get there, he was there up the middle. And I thought, like I say, that just meant that, Jerome Baker was able to come up and make some big hits from the linebacker position. There was one in particular. He hit Nick Chubb, and Nick Chubb doesn't go down, does he? Nick Chubb.
No, but that was a hit. I mean, I was watching it on the Game in 40. I heard the hit. My missus is in the bathroom in the next room, and she goes, "Fuck me, what the hell was that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's someone hitting Nick Chubb, and him actually hitting the floor."
Yeah, and the thing is, right, like I say, though, you look at the scheme. You got pressure from both edges, so Chubb couldn't bounce it outside. You got pressure up the middle because Christian Wilkins is in the backfield, and he's occupying offensive linemen. And that just allowed Jerome Baker to get up that head of steam. He came running downhill. And like you say, Nick Chubb doesn't generally get took down by the first tackle. But, he still got back to the line of scrimmage, but he wasn't getting any further than that. And, that was a hell of a play. And And like I say, just those basics, it really, really does show up how far away from even putting on anything that resembles a competent defense the Browns are. And unfortunately, we'll wait and see what the next few weeks bring in terms of the offense. And I know everybody thinks that the saviour's coming and this, that, and the other. The reality is, if you can't defend the run, you will not do anything in this league. It's as simple and as straightforward as that. I know that obviously, the explosive plays in the passing game and everybody gets excited about it. But ultimately, if the Dolphins were in any sort of third and medium situation, because they've got that run as a threat, we just couldn't get off the field, as you said, when it came to third downs and everything. It just seemed as though the Dolphins were consistently on the field. They didn't punt in the game. Tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it is the running that is important. People love the passing game. And don't get me wrong, whenever the Dolphins needed to pull out a pass play, it seemed to be there. And it seemed to be done in a way of which was clever and was taking the cornerbacks away from it, and all the rest of it, and all the other things of which McDaniels has done since he's taken over the reins at the Dolphins, and all praise to them. But it was the run game. The run game set everything up. Every other second, all you heard was their running back, Wilson. He ended up with 119 yards with an average of 7 yards a carry. 7 yards a carry in this league, you can forget about it. It's done. And they could have done what Atlanta did to us, of which was just essentially run the ball down our necks all games. We weren't stopping them. And that is a huge thing. In terms of our defensive tackles, we had the opportunity to go into the market and pick somebody up. Maybe it would have been more of a veteran presence and all the rest of it. But if you're serious about playing for something this season, would you not have done it? I wonder whether or not this is a almost calculated plan to completely reset in the summer, and that this was always seen as a write-off. Because, like you say, when a defensive tackle room, this is an entire room. It's not that no one's playing up to expectations or anything like that. Like you say, every single player in that defensive tackle room would not even get on the practice squad in other rosters. I'm pretty sure that if they hit the waiver wire, no one would pick them up. Because why would you? Unless you needed a practice squad body.
Listen,
it's ridiculous.
No, absolutely. And look, you've only got to look at the names, like I said, the three that actually played on Sunday, or four that played. Tommy Taugay, like I say, not good enough. Jordan Elliott, he's been here a few years now, never done anything. Taven Bryant's a former first-round pick. He's just awful. Roderick Perry played on Sunday. He's now been released. Perry on Winfrey, who obviously they got in the draft, wasn't even activated. They may as well cut him because he just seems more trouble than he's worth. When he's been on the field, he's looked awful. The guy that we picked up from the Falcons a few weeks back, and he's just been stashed on the practice squad. He's actually been picked up by somebody else now. God knows what he must not have been, doing in practice, because if he couldn't even get on the field for the Browns with their defensive tackle play, why on earth somebody thinks one on their practice squad he's going to be any good? I have no idea. I have seen that we've apparently picked somebody up today. But, I think it's somebody that played about 9 snaps this season. I think he actually ironically played those snaps for the Dolphins. So, again, it's just another flyer, isn't it? It's not going to be anything, that you're going to turn your season around on. So, look, there's just so many holes and so many issues on that defensive side of the ball. We could talk all night, mate, and we still wouldn't find the answers, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, definitely. Let's move on to the offensive side of the ball. Once again, as I said at the start of the show, I think that the main thing is that we're good when it comes to the scripted bit at the start. We've done very well at converting that first drive, in for it. I feel like about 80 or 90% of our first drives have gone for 7. The issue comes after that, where you have to start doing things on the fly. I don't know if it's down to the fact that we can't trust Jacoby Brissett to make those plays. I don't know if it's down to the fact that when the run game isn't working as it should, of which, as we've already brought up, the offensive line was not able to to keep their defensive line at bay. You know, Miami won the line battle on both sides of the ball. The Browns, to their credit, you know, Nick Chubb, that was a hard-earned 63 yards, of which one of them was, you know, a lot came from one play. So, you know, there was not. In fact, it says a lot when Jacoby Brissett is actually the second highest runner with 40 yards from 7 carries. You know, that's how difficult it was to run on them on Sunday. So realistically, it's a case of having next to no idea as to what to do on offense. And I know that I probably ask a lot of Jacoby Brissett because of the fact that he's currently starting, even though I know he's our backup. But the one thing of which I really find irritating about him, I imagine everybody else that has had him as a quarterback, is the pocket is collapsing around you and in front of you. Stop stepping up in the pocket. Most of his sacks come from him stepping up in the pocket when it is collapsing in front of him. And it killed like 2 or 3 drives on third down because he, for some reason, decides to step up when he should just look to throw away, or just find anybody that he can do on a standing start. I think it's just the way in which he throws, but it's infuriating. In terms of the other stuff, let's have a look at the passing. 22 off 35 for a 212 yards, and a touchdown. Those are the sort of stats which I expected Jacoby Brissett to have at the start of the season. He had started to improve. He's now gone back to that. Donovan Peoples-Jones was the best receiver, 99 yards, 5 receptions. Amari Cooper then 32 yards and 3. There seemed to be a lot of spreading the ball around. Is this just the fact that the Miami Dolphins are able to be very, very good on defense and very unpredictable? Or is this down to us just not having a clue?
Look, I don't want to be too critical on Jacoby Brissett in terms of his sort of role in the defeat, if you like, on Sunday. You know, I think, like I said earlier, the offensive line had by far its worst day at the office. You know, Wyatt Teller obviously tried to come back, ultimately didn't end up playing too much in the game, you know, because he obviously couldn't, you know, continue to go. Both of the tackles I thought had really poor days. You know, Jack Conklin beaten consistently, Jedrick Wills beaten consistently. You know, and even when Joel Bitonio, who is normally such a rock, is having a tough day, you know, it's a difficult day for any quarterback at the office. Brissett was pressured on over 50% of his dropbacks on Sunday. You know, any quarterback, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, you know, none of them particularly like pressure. Yes, some are better than others. Some people can expose that when, you know, pressure's on and people are bringing additional rushes and that kind of stuff. But the Dolphins weren't necessarily having to create this pressure with additional rushes, as we were talking about earlier. This was just 3 and 4 man fronts beating the offensive line. I actually thought, based on the conditions, Jacoby Brissett had a relatively decent day. You know, I thought he pushed the ball downfield. There were 1 or 2 throws. I mean, there's one in particular that was just an absolute laser to Donovan Peoples-Jones. When he stepped away from pressure and he threaded it through the eye of a needle, you know, which was a really key completion. I think it was on a 3rd down as well. You know, so that was a really, really good throw in particular. I've been the biggest advocate of the Browns being true to their identity and running the ball. And Owen will be so disappointed he's not here tonight when I'm about to say this. Why we continued persevering with it on Sunday when it wasn't working is just beyond me. You know, Kareem Hunt's stat line for the day was 6 rushes for 9 yards, and he had a long of 7. So, you know, you do the maths. That's 5 other rushes led to 2 yards. You know, every single time we seemingly handed off the ball, you know, and I don't know why it is. When Nick Chubb's in the game, they do more traditional running plays. You know, Nick Chubb gets behind the quarterback hands it off, and Nick Chubb's already got a bit of momentum going towards the line. to be fair to Kareem Hunt, he seems to be just given the sort of draw plays and handoffs, and he's always from a standing start. He's 5 or 6 yards behind the line of scrimmage, but that line of scrimmage, as I've already alluded to, was actually 3 or 4 yards into the backfield often by the time that Kareem Hunt was actually even touching the ball. We were so far behind the chains on so many drives. Like you say, I think Donovan Peoples-Jones had a reasonably good day. Amari Cooper caught everything thrown his way, but he was only throwing the ball 3 times. Now, I'm not for a minute comparing our wide receivers to Justin Jefferson, right? But if you look at the game that Justin Jefferson had on Sunday against the Bills, many a time Justin Jefferson appears as though he's covered. More often than not, he is covered. But Kirk Cousins, either he's a poor quarterback and he doesn't care and he just throws it anyway, or he trusts the fact that more often than not, Justin Jefferson's going to come down with the ball. And it may well be a little bit of both in that, bit of poor decision making at times, but actually trusting the fact that your premier wide receiver is going to win his matchup. Amari Cooper has shown that he can consistently win matchups. I think we need to trust him more in terms of going to the ball with him. But look, like I say, you called it. First drive was immaculate, wasn't it? Got a good return.
Yeah.
Good first drive. Brilliant. Second drive of the game, momentum changes with that fumble. But the game, for me, ended as a contest in those couple of minutes before the half. We make a good defensive stand. I think we actually get the Dolphins off the field. If memory serves me correct, I think we got them off the field on
That's
downs.
right, we did.
I think we got them off on downs. It must have been on downs because, like I said, they didn't punt, did they? So we got them off the field on downs. And then you're thinking, right, come on, then get some points on the board. Let's get it back to a level game, or worst case scenario, we're only 3 points down on the scoreboard because Miami are coming out with the ball to start the second half. And lo and behold, what do we go and do? 4 plays for 5 yards, the 3 and outs, give the ball straight back to Miami. They then march it down the field 53 yards in 7 plays, put a touchdown on the board, come out after the half and put another touchdown on the board. And at that stage, it's then well and truly game over. We've said all along this offense isn't built to play from behind. And unfortunately, when the situation was that we were so far behind in the game, it just never, ever felt as though we were going to mount a comeback. And particularly with the way the defense was playing, even if the offense had have showed any signs of life, it would have all been null and void anyway, because I'm sure the Dolphins could have done whatever they wanted to do in terms of running down the clock, putting even more points on the board. It was just a really, really bad day at the office. Final point for me on the offense, because I realise I've just rambled for a good while there, mate. But final point for me on the offense, we really missed David Njoku. Really missed David Njoku. And not just for what he's brought in the passing game, also what he brings in the running game, because, this running game has really slowed down the last few weeks. And I don't think that is any coincidence in terms of David Njoku's ability as a blocker, which is something he was heavily criticised for when he first came into the league. It's something that he's worked hard at and he's become exceptionally good at. And I think we have really, really missed him. Interesting that all of the weapons, I'll use that term loosely, were active for this game. Anthony Schwartz was back active, which was a big surprise. Michael Woods played. All of the running backs were active in terms of Jerome Ford, Dearness Johnson. I don't know whether, as you said, whether they've just accepted the fact that now this is a season of audition and let's see what some of these guys can do. There's almost an argument now, isn't there? Just wrap Nick Chubb up in cotton wool for the rest of the year.
Yeah, there is.
The argument is, getting in the rushing title, but, knowing Nick Chubb as we do, would he really want to win the rushing title on a season that the Browns end up, 4-13 or 5-12 or whatever the case may be? I don't think he's going to really massively celebrate, is he? So, let's wait and see what happens over the course of the next few weeks. We obviously need to see what Deshaun Watson does bring to the offense. But it's just a real shame that, we were all hopeful that, whatever you thought of that move, we would be in contention. When he did come back, it's looking, like I said earlier, increasingly likely that we are a million miles away.
Yeah, it does. I mean, realistically, if you're looking at the season as a whole and needing something to stay in contention, you wouldn't need something this week, but you would against the Bucks, for example, and then you would need to keep that momentum going. We'd look very far away from that based on this performance. If we played like we did against the Bengals, then that's a different story, but we just seem to have their number. That's the thing. Chris, I can see your point there, saying we need to beat the Bills and Bucks to have a small chance. It's not actually them in its entirety. It's after taking a look, we can still get to 9-7, I think it is, if we took the Bucks, but we'd have to take on a big one later on. It's not all boom or bust just yet, but it is starting to get that way. Just because I don't want you to pin your hopes on beating the Bills and getting out with that. But yeah, in any case, let's take a look at the Bills, actually. Let's start to move on, because I think that we've catharted as much as we can there, Shaun, and this being, of course, Catharsis Corner today on the Believeland Brits podcast. We'll move forward just for a very quick look at the game ahead on Sunday. And realistically, we can get into all the ins and outs. We basically know what the keys are to beat the Bills. If we have any, first of all, we need to have a heavy slice of luck. The second thing of which we need is, we're going to need to be able to run it down their throats. And the third thing is that we're going to need to be able to stop Josh Allen, at pretty much all costs. And, the Vikings, for example, definitely rode on part one there, which was riding luck. Because, my goodness, if you're somehow able to take it from that position at which they were in last night and still be able to win it on a flipping defensive touchdown fumble recovery at the inches line, then all the hats off to you. But, and this is the one thing of which we'll mention, we're going to be involved in a snow game, Shaun. Forget all the negativity. The Browns are going to be in a snow game. I can't remember the last time the Browns were in a snow game. And we have one of the best rushing units in the country, apparently. And we're in a snow game.
Yeah, we'll wait and see, won't we? I mean, obviously keep your eyes on the forecast, but it does look as though we could be talking feet rather than inches in the area.
2 feet of snow. 2 feet of snow. And falling during the game.
Yeah, so it could be. Well, I mean, look, it's probably not going to be very pretty to watch, is it? Let's be honest. I mean, as much as it adds a certain element of, excitement to it, I suppose, it also generally limits what can actually end up being produced. Obviously, the kicking game essentially goes out of the equation altogether. So everything is fall down territory. As you say, yeah, you're going to run it more often, which is obviously good in terms of for us, but obviously, as we just alluded to, Devin Singletary could well have a career day because we give everybody.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
I mean, don't get it twisted. Expect absolutely bugger all, right?
Yeah, expect bugger all, but it certainly is a leveler, isn't it? And look, let's be honest.
If there was a game to have as a snow day in this schedule,
it's this one.
It was this one.
It's this one. And look, if you'd have said to us about this game 3 weeks ago, you'd have been absolutely terrified. At least now I'm only terrified. I'm not absolutely terrified. The Bills have shown some chinks in their armor the last 2 weeks, haven't they? They've lost important games to the Jets, to the Vikings. As crazy as it is, they've gone from number one seed in the AFC to actually now being third, I think, in that division, which is just absolutely crazy to think of how that's happened and how tight that division has become. They obviously need to right their ship, and they'll be looking very much at this game as an excellent opportunity for them to do that. They've actually got the Browns and the Lions in a 5-day span because they play on Thanksgiving. So I think the Lions will be very, very pleased with the way that the Bills will be very pleased with the way that schedule has worked out for them. If we've got any chance, as you say, we are going to need to be, let's assume that the snow is coming. Everybody seems to sort of be trending that way, and every forecast seems to suggest that it is. we've got to do something about this run defense, because otherwise, as I say, Devin Singletary, as maligned as he's been since he's been in the league, will just have an absolute monster of a day. It's as simple as that. Obviously, Josh Allen, does he have issues with the elbow? It seems as though his performance on the weekend would suggest that he can work through whatever issues he does have there. It wasn't for a lack of his ability to throw the ball or get the ball down the field. He threw for 330 yards. So he's still going to make his share of plays. Stephon Diggs is still going to be, the premier target, and he's going to be a difficult matchup for whoever ends up against him. We know Gabe Davis loves a big play. But again, it's a Josh Allen that's certainly not 100%. It's a
Do you risk him in a snow day? Knowing you're going to be running 75% of your plays and most of your throws are going to be short outs, do you risk him?
Yeah, look, I think it's one of them. If the Bills hadn't have lost the last two games, they may have had that luxury. I think they need to take care of business, and I think as much as even as Browns fans, we're sitting here and thinking it's a bit of a layup for the Bills. The NFL just doesn't work that way, does it?
No,
so
it doesn't.
They will, they will obviously put their best players out on the field, and you'd imagine Josh Allen will go. But as we've said, look, the weather's certainly going to be a leveler. It's a Josh Allen that is certainly dealing with some issues. It's a team that's in a 2-game losing skid. So there are a few more chinks of positivity for the Browns than there would have potentially been 2 or 3 weeks ago. But the reality is, as much as I'm always trying to be the optimist, I think I'm the only one on the podcast that's probably picked us to win more weeks than I've picked us to lose.
True.
Even I'm struggling this week, to be honest. I really am struggling because I just don't see how, based on what's been put out on the field, the Browns can be anywhere near to even, sort of keeping pace with this Bills team. And like I say, for me now, the thing that I'm really looking for over the next 7 to 8 weeks is how many of these players on both sides of the ball, but certainly on the defensive side of the ball in particular, are coming back as Cleveland Browns in the 2023 season. Because for me, that's really now what this is all about. It's, who is actually going to be here that we're going to be building around, that we're going to see coming back to sort of make significant contributions. Some players have done themselves no harm. I mentioned, players like Taki, who's took advantage of some extended playing time. But I want to see others stepping up. I want to see, can Harrison Bryant actually do something in terms of the tight end position? He's another one, wasn't he? A 4th round pick, hasn't really set the world alight by any stretch of the imagination. We joke about Anthony Schwartz, but he was a 3rd round draft pick just a year ago. We've seen absolutely nothing from him. We've almost expected that DPJ has just become the number 2 wide receiver. Bear in mind, he was taken 3 whole rounds later than Anthony Schwartz. I know they were in different drafts, but he was taken in the 6th round. He's really stepped up.
Was it the 6th, not the 7th? I thought he was a 7th rounder even.
No, I'm pretty sure he was a 6th. But the point stands either way, doesn't it? That he was taken much later on. Than Anthony Schwartz was. Anthony Schwartz doesn't even provide you anything in the return game. You could almost half accept it if he was like returning kicks and punts and he was giving you a dangerous weapon that way, but he's just, producing nothing. And there's a whole load of players that, like I say, fit the bill for me in terms of where I want to see players taking advantage of the playing time that they're going to get over the next few weeks. I want to see more from David Bell. I think there was a lot of expectation that he would do quite well as a rookie. Again, don't know whether it's scheme or what it is, but he hasn't really done an awful lot.
We're not a scheme that highlights weapons, are we? We're a scheme that focuses on tight ends and the top 2 wide receivers. There's just no room for him at the moment, and he's just taking the scraps when they come. I think he's done well with the scraps that he's taken, to be fair.
Yeah, that's probably a fair comment, mate. It's probably a fair comment. But, like I said, for me, we're getting to that stage now. Let's see some of these guys. I want to see James Hudson starting at tackle. I don't think Jack Conklin's back next year. Let's get, 6, 7, 8 games of James Hudson. He started off the season relatively well. We allowed Conklin to come back when he was fit, which was the right thing to do, because obviously you want to try and put your best lineup out there to win games. But like I say, we're now in a stage where all we want to see now is some player progression, and I think that some of these young players, let's see what they've actually got. Let's see whether or not we've got players to build around for the next campaign.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that that's something of which, especially, so early on in the season, to be able to, I wouldn't say resign yourself to, but definitely to accept that, we should now start looking at player development and, looking towards roster building for next season. It's not necessarily a bad thing as long as you take it as, I personally think that Andrew Berry had no intention of having a deep run this year. Just from the actions, which said he can talk all the game that he wants, but his actions have not been that way. So let's look at the player development, but hope for surprises along the way. Now, I'm not going to ask you for a score prediction in this one because I don't think it's fair on us to predict as to how badly things might get, no matter how optimistic we can be. But I will point out very quickly for people as we round up that Wine, if you're there listening to us, mate, while you're rehabbing at the gym, you are now in second place all on your own with 93 points in the Pick'ems League. You had an absolutely busting week. How on earth you got 8 right? I will never understand. Shaun and I both got 6 right last week. So Wine's there on 93. Shaun's there on 94 at the top. So you're closing the gap there as well. I'm in 4th place on 90. Shaun, you're in 7th place on 88. Things are starting to tighten up. It was so close there. But Wine, get yourself on the full 10 yards league, mate, because you'd be neck and neck with Louise this week if you're actually in it. And I'm pretty sure that you'd like to take away that prize as well. Not that my missus would be too happy with me promoting that, but in any case, do keep on getting your pick'ems across to us. And if everyone would like to pick the Browns this week, just so that I can start going above a few people again, that'd be great. That'd be great. I promise I don't take pick'ems too seriously. The missus definitely does, though. So I'd quite like to be able to claim some points back. In any case, thank you very much for joining us in Catharsis Corner today with myself and Shaun. We'll see you next week at the usual time. We're going back to the usual time of a Monday evening. I do apologise. It's been all round the reeking for the last several weeks. I've had just one too many things go on in life over the last month. But we will be back Monday evening next week to review the snow day in Buffalo. It's going to be a snow day. It's going to be a good day. Promise. I can't promise that. Anyway, have a good week and we will see you soon.